Over the past year, almost every home across Ireland has been affected by the recession. Words like banks, mortgages, NAMA and unemployment have been clogging up our TV screens, as each and every one of us struggles to come to terms with our newfound economic hardship. But there's one recession buzzword you might not have heard as often over the past 12 months: burglaries.
Just before 4 a.m, it's believed 2 men broke into a house on Templeview Row in Clare Hall. The men were armed with a knife and a hammer.
Early this month, Gardaí issued a warning that the number of bogus traders and house callers was on the increase. This type of crime is seen as particularly despicable, since it often preys on the weak and elderly in society.
With the downturn in full swing, theft is spiralling upwards. Over the course of 2009, burglaries increased in 20 out of 28 Garda divisions across the country. The nation's black spot is officially South Dublin, with nearly 1,300 burglary offences reported in the first 9 months of 2009. North Dublin has proven almost as fruitful for crooks, with theft increasing by 17% in the same period. The recession may have rendered your wallet a little lighter, but just be thankful you've still got one.
Certainly the recession is a key factor in the explosion of petty crime regarding burglaries and muggings and assaults on the person.
Tonight on Ireland's crime capitals, we go behind the stats and speak to the real people who have suffered at the hands of thieves.
I looked at him and he looked at me. I don't know whether he was surprised or not. I couldn't tell you. But it didn't affect me.
Wherever he did that job, he had to know me, he had to know my place.
With your home, it's so personal. You wouldn't like anybody in your home. You'll do anything to keep them out of your home, really.
We hear how con men are dressing up as council workers, entering people's homes and then stealing whatever they can find.
If someone goes to your door and says about, I'm from the waterworks, can I go in and have a look? Like most people, especially if it's in the daytime, people take that as being truthful.
And we look at the latest state-of-the-art technology being employed in homes to protect dwellers against intruders. Also tonight on Crime Capitals, from security in the home to security at 30,000 feet. We report on safety at Irish airports. Could small landing strips be a gateway for drugs into Ireland?
There are some situations where private airports receive very little in terms of visits from the agents of the state or the security forces, namely Garda Síochána, Customs or Excise.
And we report on how a massive blunder by the Slovak authorities allowed an innocent man to carry explosive material straight through arrivals at Dublin Airport.
Break-ins are occurring at an enormous rate in Dublin. Countless homeowners here have been unfortunate enough to return to their properties, only to find them ransacked. Businesses have suffered a similar fate. In some cases, an intruder is long gone from the scene of a crime by the time it's discovered.
Filippo Fusco manages Fusco's chip shop in Dublin's Liberties area. He's popular with the locals and has been running his trade here for 47 years. But it hasn't been all plain sailing for Filippo. Over the years, he's endured numerous break-ins. On one occasion, they stole his safe.
I closed the shop in the night. Exactly, I left it there at 1:30 in the morning myself. When The next morning, it's actually my son, the one there, you know. So yeah, he arrived there before me, and then he rang me and say, Dad, we have a brick lane there, you know. And then he rang me a few minutes after, he rang me, Dad, the safe is gone. He robbed the safe. So yeah, I said, okay, I'll be there in about 10 minutes.
Filippo is convinced the intruder was familiar with the shop layout, as he knew how to get through the rear window and where to find the safe.
He broke, he cut the steel bar in the back window. Wherever he did that job, he had to know me, he had to know my place, because he come up prepared with electric cut for cut the bar in the window, you know. He went inside, you know, you find where I hide the safe, and the safe is 500 kilo weight, you know. You can't remove just like that, so you has at least 3 or 4 people.
The thief also knew where to locate the spare key and how to escape with the safe, applying minimal effort.
He knows exactly where the other key, the spare key was, and he get in, and that particular week the alarm was broke, you know, and then he took a key, he opened the door, the front door, he opened the shutter, he took my trolley in the back to remove the stuff, you know, so he went inside of the kitchen in the back, you know, he took away the safe with the trolley, he bring it out in the front door, and then he closed back, he closed the door and he closed the shutter back.
Stories like Filippo's lead us to assume robberies take place at night. But more often than not, this isn't the case. Research shows that afternoons between the hours of noon and 4 p.m. are most popular for break-ins.
It makes perfect sense for criminals to use classic times when people will be out at work. All they have to do is drive through an area, and if that's, you know, in the case of today, most modern housing estates, not alone are people out at work during the day, you have a commonality of age and circumstances, so most people are following a very uniform type of life, and during the hours of daylight makes it a lot easier than going in at night time, because somebody lurking around the place at night time may look more suspicious.
If an intruder entered your home in the middle of the day, how would you react? Tackling a thief is an option the brave may favour. But what if you didn't know a burglar was a burglar when you confronted him? What if he was disguised as something else?
80-year-old Ida from the south inner city was enjoying an afternoon nap when a so-called guard arrived at her door.
I usually have my lunch at 1 o'clock, look at the news, and then I go up to bed from 2 till 5 because I've to rest after dinner. So I went up about 1:30, 1:45, and I was lying looking at the telly because I did doze off kind of looking at the telly, and I heard someone down here, and I said, that's probably one of my children because they all have their own keys to get in the door. And next I heard his David up the stairs, thinking because it was a man's foot. And this fella opened the door, big tall fella, about 5'10", tight haircut, lovely white shirt, jeans. And he said, I'm McGarry, Mrs. And I've just come in, he said, you left your front door open. I said, I don't think I did, mister. I looked at him and he looked at me. I don't know whether he was surprised or not. I couldn't tell you. But it didn't affect me. I still thought he was a guard. He had a little purse in his hand. He could have picked her up down here. And he said to me, had your money in that purse? And I said, no, I hadn't. I have no money at all in the house. So I said, hold on and I'll go downstairs with you. So I got out of bed and I came down the stairs with him. I think he was behind me, And he kept saying to me, "Are you sure you left no money anywhere else? Have you money anywhere else?" And I said, "Wait till I tell you, guard." I said, "I've 4 daughters, and they wouldn't let me have money in the house. He was afraid someone would break in." So I got him down the stairs and I was chatting to him here, and then I got him to the door. He didn't sit down, no. He went over and I was chatting to him for about 10 minutes outside the door. I asked him, "Are you from Kevin Street?" He said, "Oh yeah," and I sat him for 10 minutes outside the door. And I was looking up, the funny thing about it was when he was in the bedroom and I looked at him, he had blue gloves on him. Now they weren't plastic, they were knitted, like what you put on a child. And I thought that was a bit peculiar, but it never dawned on me that he wasn't a guard. And I took him for a guard. That'll tell you how good he was.
If Ida had been aware at the time she was dealing with a crook, the outcome could have been radically different.
I'd have probably nearly dropped out of the fray, to tell you the truth. Do you know what I mean? Would you? Huh? But I didn't know. The beauty was that I didn't know. I'm telling you, someone was looking after me. I know that now for the fact.
Ida isn't alone in her experience. The Gardaí are now holding community meetings to warn residents about bogus Dublin City Council workers. You'll hear more after the break.
I wish something could be done about it because it's just not damn good enough, you know. It's not good enough.
Burglaries in Ireland are on the rise. Homeowners should consider carefully how they lock up and where they leave their belongings. Even suspicious activity in the neighbourhood needs to be monitored.
You have 2 types of people who commit burglaries. You have people who are committing a crime of opportunity, who want to net cash quickly. And they're more likely to be the ones who will actually effect a break-in, and they could do it at any hour of the day or night. And then you have people that are doing it on a more organised basis, and they'll do their homework. And burglars who usually break into houses during the day where they have done a little bit of reconnaissance are the ones likely to get away with it. Because in addition to studying the patterns of the people that live in the area, they'll have planned out how they're going to look. They'll have planned out a method of exit as well.
In the 12 months to the end of June, around 72 million worth of goods was stolen from Irish homes. In 1/3 of all cases, jewellery was taken. With the recession in full swing, burglars will go to any length to fill their coffers. Disguise is one effective technique.
Irish society is not close-knit as it used to be. And therefore, an enterprising criminal can plan to burglarise a house during the day because it's perfectly acceptable if they look like workmen going in to do a job in a house that the neighbours down the road won't see anything unusual about that.
At this community meeting in the Liberties area, Gardaí are warning locals to watch out for con men masquerading as Dublin City Council workers. A number have been reported operating in the area recently. Taking advantage of the winter chill, they approach homes, asking to look at frozen taps. High-vis jackets and false ID afford a level of authenticity. When inside, one conman studies the tap, while the other raids the house.
Obviously this would be of huge concern, particularly at the moment because a lot of the houses and a lot of the flats in the area are without water. So therefore, people are more vulnerable. If somebody, knocks on your door and says, "I'm from the City Council Waterworks and we're checking your water pressure," you're more inclined to let them in at this stage.
If someone goes to your door and says about, "I'm from the waterworks, can I go in and have a look?" Like most people, especially if it's in the daytime, people take that as being truthful.
When word filtered through about the conmen, The residents called together the Gardaí, Dublin City Council and even the local parish.
We actually got a phone call from somebody that we know in the Rialto area to alert us that this had been happening up there, and then we made a few phone calls around, because obviously we do a lot of work with older people. We always find that the best thing to do is to actually get people together as quickly as possible.
But I have to say we've a great community around here in the Liberties. Even at Mass yesterday, the priest read out a letter from the guards, and he also was telling people about the people that were going around. So we are a very close-knit community, and we're all involved in everything.
Last month, TV3 spoke to a 79-year-old man based in the Donnybrook area who has first-hand experience of these con artists.
Well, the first one, he rang the bell. He said, there's a leak from upstairs. Would you ever check to see what's happening in your kitchen? So fortunately, I closed the door, and of course I knew there was no leak, but I immediately phoned the guards. I said, listen, there's something strange. The guy is pretending that there's a leak. We'll be up in 5 minutes. So I came out again, and I said, do you have any identification? And he didn't answer me. So I said again, do you have any identification? No answer. And with that, his mate, who was hiding around the corner, came, and the two of them tried to push the door in. Fortunately, I was able to close it, and I went in and got. I keep a lead pipe in the cupboard, you see. Came out, and I said, right now, lads, I've got a pipe now. Would you like to continue? And they ran straight away, and unfortunately, the guards just missed. They were up within 5 minutes.
Many of those who've been burgled face hardship in its aftermath. Post-traumatic stress is a common occurrence, causing homeowners sleepless nights and a general fear of being left alone in case it happens again. Sally Hanlon runs the Support After Crime service. In counselling victims of theft, she has dealt with every emotion.
The common ones that we would see would be fear. Fear of actually what has happened and the fact that it may happen again. There would be a sadness, a loss of trust in the community, an idea that, did somebody know? Was I targeted or was it random? Obviously their peace of mind and their security and their peace of mind may be, you know, not as secure as it was before the crime. But eventually, with the help and with their own, you know, attitudes of moving forward, they can overcome the crime. They will never forget the crime. They possibly, for the rest of their days, would be able to tell you the day of the week and the time that this crime happened. But if they move with the support, they can overcome it.
Seeing your home violated can be a harrowing experience for anyone. But being there at the time makes matters worse. It's thought that 80% of burglaries happen when an individual is in their home. One resident based in Dublin's North Inner City can be included in that figure.
So it was like 8 o'clock at night, and I was upstairs with my boyfriend. We were in the office, we were working on the computers, and I saw the light switch on and off downstairs in the living room. I can saw the light. My boyfriend didn't see it, but I said, well, did you see that? I said, no, I don't know. We heard a big noise, and my boyfriend heard it as well. So then I was very scared, and he was the first to move, and he started to go downstairs. He went down the stairs. And we rushed, like I was following him, but there was nobody. Like the guy had left, and we went through the front door first. He went to the front door and see if he was there, and we didn't see anything. So then we went through the back door in the kitchen, and there we saw my handbag, the content all spread over the ground. Some of it was stolen, like my mobile, my wallet.
Marie Catherine had left her back door open earlier that evening, so the thief was granted an easy opportunity. The robbery has caused her to be a little more vigilant in protecting her home.
I think the result is I'm still more cautious. Like I would be very worried about leaving the door open, and be more cautious to lock all the time, and even if I'm here, I would lock the door just in case.
If Marie Catherine had to defend her home, question marks remain as to how far she could have gone to protect herself. After the break, we hear how the rights of the occupant against an intruder are still blurred. And we discover how high-tech security, once the stuff of James Bond movies, is now being fitted in Irish homes.
With your home, it's so personal. You wouldn't like anybody in your home. You'll do anything to keep them out of your home, really.
In the dictionary, the word residence is defined as a structure serving as a home or a dwelling. But where does that dwelling begin and end? If an intruder enters your garden, can you attack? How far can you chase him? As things stand, the law is blurred.
The problem with the law as it's currently written, or both in cases and in statute, is, as I say, that it's quite vague, and that allows for a huge amount of discretion to be given to judges and jurors on a case-by-case basis in the application of the law.
The most difficult question for the law to answer is, when does self-defence become an act of aggression? So clearly, if somebody is in your bedroom or in your house, if you use force, you're defending your property. But if that person has now left your house, if they're walking down your laneway, if they're walking onto the street, if their back is turned, if you continue to attack them, if you stab them in the back, or if you hit them with a brick on the back of the head whilst they're walking away, clearly the jury will have to consider, was that genuine self-defence? Were you genuinely defending your property, or had you crossed the line?
In October 2004, the muddied law regarding unlawful entrance raised its head when Mayo farmer Pádraig Nally shot dead traveller John Frog Ward, who had been trespassing on his property.
It was at this house in County Mayo that the bachelor farmer who lived alone shot and killed a traveller. On October the 14th, 2004, John Ward and his son Tom left a halting site on the outskirts of Galway City and drove to Mr Nally's house. Pádraig Nally was at his home having dinner when he heard noise in the farmyard. He then found John Ward trying to break in his door. He claimed the travellers had been at his property before and were out to rob him. The farmer got his shotgun. He says the gun went off accidentally, hitting the father of 11, John Ward, in the hip and the hand. He wasn't seriously injured, but a vicious fight broke out between the two men. Pádraig Nally shot John Ward twice and hit him 20 times with a stick. The second and fatal shot was fired after Mr Ward had left the farmyard and was limping down the road. Mr Nally threw Mr Ward's body over the wall before calling the Gardaí from a neighbour's house.
I think the Nally case became so controversial because it did raise this dividing line between acting in self-defence and going on the attack.
Generally, the law allows you to use defensive force, that's protective force, but frowns upon offensive force. So once you have met a threat, you should then desist, so as to basically to ensure that that force is only ever used as a last resort.
In November 2005, Nally was sentenced to 6 years imprisonment for manslaughter. But a year later, his conviction was quashed and his name cleared.
I want to thank the jury for their long deliberation. I want to thank the legal team. I want to thank all my neighbours and friends and all who have helped me, all who have sent letters to me. I feel sorry for the Ward family who have lost a father and left with young children.
The jury decided he was acting in self-defence and used an amount of force that was reasonable by objective standards when John Frog Ward came onto his land on that fateful day in October 2004.
So does legislation need to be clarified? The Law Reform Commission has suggested changes to current measures.
The problem is that there are a number of different criteria that are currently used, but they're used inconsistently in determining whether or not the accused's response was reasonable. And these are what was the level of threat faced, how imminent was that threat, whether the use of force was necessary and whether it was proportionate. And what the Law Reform Commission have recommended is that those 4 criteria now be given a statutory basis. So instead of them coming in or out depending on the judge who directs the case and the lawyers who argue the case, that they should be applied consistently, irrespective of whether someone is killed or not.
The law on self-defence in Ireland is based on common sense, and what the law says is you can use such force as is reasonable in the circumstances as you believe them to be. And you can use reasonable force to defend yourself, to defend anybody else who you see in trouble, and you can use it to defend your property. A lot of it will come down to the common sense of juries. Members of a jury are perfectly capable of deciding were you genuinely defending yourself from an attack or defending your property, or had you crossed the line and gone on the offensive. And if you've chased somebody down your driveway or halfway down the street and shot them 3 times in the back, well, a jury is quite likely to decide that wasn't self-defence, that was you in effect deciding to impose the death penalty on somebody.
Whether the law changes or not, people on the ground feel vulnerable, and they're taking new precautions to protect themselves. Greg McGarry runs Halo Security. Specialising in state-of-the-art technology, he's got devices you might once have seen in a Hollywood movie. But over the past year, they've become commonplace in Irish homes.
In previous years during the Celtic Tiger, we noticed that it was high net worth individuals who were investing in security for their homes and putting in professional security systems and CCTV and that sort of thing. We have noticed a marked increase in the number of inquiries recently, possibly due to the recession and the increase in burglaries that people are suffering.
In one of the houses we visited with Greg, he showed us how to turn a home into a fortress.
As you can see here over my shoulder, we have a camera that actually has very long-range night vision on it, which allows the camera obviously to see at night.
One of his clients is Deirdre. She decided to get CCTV installed in the home after a series of break-ins to her workplace.
So the reason I decided to put the cameras into work was because I just felt like I had to improve security. We had break-in inside and work, and I think the cameras are a great deterrent and they're a great way to catch whoever has broken into you. I decided then to put them at home as well because it's very handy to see who is actually around your house and what's going on. You can get the text messages on your phone, you can see who's around your house, and I do think they're a good deterrent as well. If people see that there are cameras outside your home, they're not as inclined to go near it, really.
In this case, the owner has selected one of our touch monitors, which allows them to see all around their home from their bedroom, but also they're able to change which camera is in focus at any given time. So you can see in this case, you can just touch the monitor and it brings, it allows us to actually see which screen is of most interest at that time. So you have your front door here, approach to the main door from the side of the house, then you have the actual front door, you have the driveway covered here, you have the side of the house. Here we have an auxiliary monitor also in the kitchen. People spend a lot of time in the kitchen. It gives a lot of peace of mind, you know, when you're, you know, if you're maybe not near the front door or anything, you can see if there's anybody coming near the house.
Also, when you're away, that if you want to see what's going on around your house or who's calling to the house or anything like that, that you can actually just click a button on your phone and you can view it straight away. I do think we would probably see a lot more of this technology in normal homes. I do think it's the way forward. With your home, it's so personal. You wouldn't like anybody in your home. You'll do anything to keep them out of your home, really. So I do think it is probably the way forward now.
It's not just CCTV Greg is supplying to homes. The Fog Secure machine has become the latest deterrent against unlawful entry.
Halo Fog Secure is a security fog device which injects dense fog into a premises in seconds, filling rooms literally in 10 to 15 seconds to the point where it is impossible to see.
In this mock-up, a burglar enters a home, triggering an alarm. The noise is one deterrent, but if that doesn't stop him, He's also going to have to battle his way through dense fog, pumped all over the home. Obscuring almost everything in sight, felons don't stand a chance.
The fog security system is the ideal solution for preventing smash and grab robberies, because as soon as you come in you have very, very limited time to make a decision that this isn't going to work and you've got to leave, and that's the whole idea behind the solution.
Businesses are bolstering their security too. In this mock-up, our crook is back, vying to gain entry into a warehouse. He dismantles the lock using bolt cutters and opens the warehouse exterior gates. He darts through the gate thinking he's undetected, but infrared beams on either side of the perimeter have been triggered. Instantly, they notify security that an unwanted presence has been detected.
The difference here is that the security system is completely independent of any power or phone lines or even broadband or anything like that on the site. And what that means is that even though they've already made an attempt to disable the system is completely independent and will wirelessly alert the monitoring centre to the presence of an issue, and then our staff can dial in, check the cameras and contact the Gardaí as appropriate.
If triggered, the infrared beams can also send a text message to your phone, notifying you of an issue on site.
The text message that comes in from the system indicates to us which sensor on the site has been activated. So we know which site it is, what sensor has been activated, and so we know the area of the security breach on that site.
Before the thief even gains access to the building, he can be chased off via speakerphone if security deems it necessary.
Warning, you are being monitored by Hanlon security. Please identify yourself to the monitoring station.
These are the security measures people are employing to fight burglars. Protecting property is an everyday reality in these harsh economic times. After the break, we turn to a different type of security, at airports. Could small airfields be facilitating drug traffickers unknowingly? And we look at how a major clangor by Slovakian authorities resulted in bomb components being carried straight through Dublin Airport.
Airports in Ireland have to impose stringent security measures to ensure the safety of their outbound passengers. When it comes to inbound passengers, they're reliant on the security of their foreign counterparts. If another airport system fails, trouble can land on our doorstep.
That's what happened at the beginning of this year when a disastrous cock-up by the Slovak authorities allowed a passenger to carry bomb components straight through Dublin Airport. On Saturday, January 2nd, innocent Slovakian passenger Stefan Gonda boarded a Danube Wings plane at the Slovakian Poprad Airport. He was returning to Dublin after spending time at home in Slovakia.
On that occasion, the individual concerned, Stefan Gonda, was travelling on a scheduled Danube Airlines flight from Slovakian Airport to Dublin Airport. And it was also the same day that the Slovakian Border Police decided to institute a security exercise to examine their ability to detect contraband coming through. In this case, the Slovakian authorities picked a number of passengers, Mr. Gonda included, and took their luggage as it was being processed and inserted explosive material into the luggage. And then the luggage was examined by scanners and sniffer dogs, and for the most part they detected the baggage with the explosives, but not in the case of Mr. Gonda.
Before the luggage was boarded, a security handler with a sniffer dog had detected the bag. But before removing its contents, he was called to another job and the luggage was allowed to board. The Danube Wings plane then jetted off for Dublin, carrying a potentially volatile package.
The explosives were harmless without a detonator or a power supply, but the particular explosives, RDX, could be rendered volatile if they went below 4 degrees. And flying at the altitude that they were at, and of course the weather that Dublin was experiencing, there was a possibility that that explosive, however slim, could have been rendered volatile.
Slovakian authorities claimed that they alerted the pilot of the plane to the presence of the package, but details of what message they actually sent him are vague. The Slovaks also sent a telex message to the maintenance company Service Air, who handled Danube Wings flights.
Now, the Slovaks say that they telexed Dublin Airport to warn them that this material was hanging around and was in somebody's luggage, but they weren't able to say whose luggage. And the telex was sent to the wrong people. It was a CETA correspondence, which is a form of email, if you like, peculiar to the aviation industry. And this went unattended in the offices of Service Air.
With no direct contact made by the Slovaks to either the Gardaí, the Department of Foreign Affairs or Dublin Airport Authority, the flight was allowed to land and Stefan Gonda was able to exit the airport, luggage in tow, completely unaware of the fate that awaited him. Had he arrived at any other airport, the outcome would have been exactly the same, as most security checks are carried out at the departing airport. It wasn't until the Tuesday morning that the Dublin Airport authorities were alerted to the problem.
The Slovak authorities made contact with us on 9 o'clock the following Tuesday after the event. The event took place on the Saturday. We got a phone call to our airport police control office at 9 o'clock. They told us what had happened and we immediately rang An Garda Síochána. We weren't concerned at that particular point that any security breach had taken place because no security breach had taken place. When passengers arrive at an airport, and this is internationally, they are not security screened on arrival at an airport. That is a worldwide situation. And if that aircraft had landed in Rome or Milan or Paris, it would have been the very same situation.
With Gonda now back at his apartment on Dorset Street, Gardaí, along with the bomb disposal unit, were gearing up to give him the fright of his life.
That led to a major security operation closing down Dorset Street with armed Gardaí making a forced entry into Mr. Gonda's apartment and having to make an arrest on him, and also members of the Defence Force Explosive Ordnance Disposal Team coming in to render any device safe.
Jeweller Martin Gear has a shop situated directly below Stefan Gonda's apartment. He was one of those cleared out by the bomb disposal unit.
I arrived down to the shop approximately 10 o'clock, late because of the snow. There was guards around the area. There was traffic corps jeep here, 2 guards in the bus lane and some detectives in the area. Then more Gardaí arrived and they said we have to leave immediately, that there is a suspicious device and they want to clear the entire area. The entire block was cleared out, all the residents, all the workers, everybody had to leave. Approximately 2.5 hours. The road was sealed off completely.
Here we see the Gardaí waiting outside Gonda's apartment. Then the disposal unit emerge with the package safely contained. In the aftermath of the incident, the Slovakian authorities admitted the training procedure had gone dramatically wrong. There were calls for heads to roll, and Colonel Tibor Mako, head of Border and Immigration Police, bore the brunt of it. A week after the incident, he resigned from his position. The Slovakian ambassador in Dublin also had a lot of questions to answer.
There was a human error. There was a failure of respective police officer who somehow failed to remove the sample of explosive from the luggage. Definitely there was no intention to send any explosive to Ireland.
Could these explosives have gone off in mid-air, bringing everyone down on the flight?
I am not expert on explosives, you probably understand, but by the information that I have at my disposal, there was no immediate danger to the jet nor to the passengers.
But what if Gonda had been apprehended when carrying the explosive material?
The man could have been shot. He could certainly have been interrogated and locked away for an awful long time as a suspect. He could be on a no-travel list for years. Lots of things could have gone wrong in his life. So, yes, I think if I were him, I would be very alarmed, I'd be very grieved, I'd be very worried indeed that this could happen to somebody else and that it could end with tragic consequences.
It's not only at major airports that trouble can land on our doorstep. Small airports across the country could potentially be an avenue for gangsters to smuggle drugs into Ireland. Recently, drug trafficker John Kinsella was jailed for 12 years for his role in attempting to fly €7 million worth of heroin and cocaine into Ireland. He was planning to land his cargo at Weston Airport in September 2006. But he was nabbed when police found the drugs as they were about to be loaded onto an aircraft in Belgium. The story raised concerns about small airports and their clearance procedures in general. Unlike large airports, small airfields do not have permanent immigration and customs checks. They operate on a self-declaration basis.
The situation is so loose that you can have a small plane landing in this jurisdiction without any authority knowing the existence or the flight path or the destination or the occupants of that plane.
Flights from abroad or flights carrying foreign passengers are supposed to notify the authorities. However, if the crew fails to declare itself, the Irish authorities could be unaware of their presence. Customs checks are carried out on a random basis and are infrequent in number. So for a huge number of days a year, small airports could be bringing in cargo completely unchecked.
There are some situations where private airports receive very little in terms of visits from the agents of the state or the security forces, namely Garda Síochána, Customs or Excise. The figures will show that visits are infrequent, are inconsistent, and that there isn't any form of general policy. Oftentimes the Revenue and Customs and Gardaí will cite manpower issues, the fact that they cannot be at every airstrip at all times, the fact that they cannot monitor every passenger on all occasions. But to my mind, there isn't a properly coordinated policy having regard to the fact that illegal importing of drugs is such a blight on society.
The Gardaí and Customs have a huge fight on their hands to stop drugs coming into the country. And it's not just airports they should be worried about. Next week on Ireland's crime capitals, we head to southwest Cork, where the vast rugged coastline serves as an access route for drug smugglers. We investigate the infamous Dunlock Bay drug seizure, which shocked the local community.
1.27 billion worth of cocaine. It could have supplied the UK cocaine market for 12-18 months.
And we also head to Cork City, where we hear how its heroin problem is on the rise.
Heroin is taking over the town, and it's going to get worse. It is going to get a lot worse, you know.
It's just begging all day to get money. Everything is about getting heroin, like it's just how's the next hit coming, like, do you know what I mean? It's all about the money and you don't care about anything else, like you grab for it, you do anything.